everybody. Welcome to Project HR, a podcast dedicated to building better workplaces. As always, I'm your host, Beth Pilgrim, and I'm so excited because today's episode is the first in our Best Practices in Employee Relations series. In this series, we'll interview movers and shakers at companies you know and love to find out how they handle this critical topic. In this episode, we are joined by Stephanie Miller. Stephanie is the Director of Employee Relations for Lowe's. This multiple award-winning home improvement retailer has received the acknowledgments of Military-Friendly Employer, America's Most Loved Brands. They landed number 9 on Forbes' list of most engaged companies, and in 2020 was listed as one of the best places to work for LGBTQ equality with the Human Rights Campaign Foundation. Stephanie, clearly Lowe's is getting a lot of things right, and we are so glad you're here to talk with us today.
Thank you, Beth. It is a thrill to be here with you.
Oh, we're so glad it worked out. So let's talk about employee relations. Speaking broadly, why is it so critical to a company's success?
Such a great question to kick off our conversation, Beth. I would say, in the broadest sense, employee relations refers to the manner in which management addresses and interacts with their employees. Maintaining good employee relations helps reduce conflicts, it boosts employee morale, and raises overall productivity. Our employees are the most important part of any business, not simply because they are the most expensive asset to the company, but because they generate the company's revenue and profit.
What impact do you think positive ER has on employee satisfaction and engagement?
If every employee feels like they are being treated fairly and important, and, there are a lot of components of both of those things. Things like being part of a culture of accountability, being provided a clear understanding of how you fit into a company's mission. If they feel that way, they are more likely to work harder and be more productive. And so creating and maintaining a healthy and efficient workplace with good management, which means strong employee relations, is vital and key to any business's success or in some cases failure.
Mm-hmm. And I would assume too that in return, the result of this employee satisfaction and engagement, that it would positively impact companies. Am I right?
You are right. I mean, there is study after study that shows that employees who are satisfied and engaged are more productive and go above and beyond the call of duty. That's kind of what we call engagement, right?
Right.
And as a result, the productivity and engagement then increases your company's revenue and profits. So, stated another way, like if our associates at Lowe's feel as though we treat them fairly, make them feel important, they're going to pass that on to how they treat our customers. And if our associates provide exceptional customer service, it's going to result in increased revenue and profit for Lowe's.
And that is definitely something that all companies would want to strive for. Well, that leads into why positive employee relations is such a critical part for any company's labor relations strategy. Can you spell that out for us?
Sure. So, there's some basic tenets of what constitutes a healthy and positive workplace. And that list includes things like promoting open dialogue and communication, focusing on your company mission and values, making sure that your employees are feeling like they're giving value to the organization, inspiring your employees, of course, rewarding them, offering career development, which, as we all know, comes in various forms.
Right.
And then lastly, being sure that we promote a healthy work and personal life balance. And if your employees don't get these principles from their management, they're going to go outside the organization for help with them. And that could mean a variety of different outside third parties. It could mean an administrative agency like an EEOC or a State Department of Human Rights. It could mean an attorney, or it also could mean a labor union.
Is a company's approach or philosophy on employee relations related to the company's culture?
Definitely. I think it was Peter Drucker, one of the most widely known and influential management thinkers, who said, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." And
Oh, that's great.
yeah, and I think this quote embodies how a company's ER or LR philosophy is intertwined with its culture. And what Drucker meant by this is that no matter how sound, innovative, or strong your company's strategies are, your efficacy is wholly dependent upon whether your people have the proper and shared proper culture. So in the end, your people are responsible for bringing the strategies to life. And in other words, a strong strategy will create the rules for your company to play by, but it's the culture that will determine the way in which the game is played. And the
Hmm.
culture is comprised of passion and engagement and execution by your associates.
Well, and I would assume too that if I am an employee, if I am being poured into, if I am being nurtured as an employee, then I am going to want to execute the strategy more so because I know that I am valued.
That's right. You understand where you fit in kind of the big picture.
Hmm.
And if management is either not articulating that for associates or isn't doing it in a way in which they understand, there's going to be a disconnect in our folks' ability to execute on what's being expected of them.
Yeah, communication is everything. Not to be so broad, but it really is.
It sure is. It sure is.
All right, Stephanie, it's time for us to take a sponsorship break. But when we return, we'll learn how Lowe's approaches employee relations. So stay with us. Are you working to build an employee relations dream team? I've got an in-depth guide that provides the same roadmap used by employers of choice across the country. It reveals the 3 functional areas you must address before you begin building your dream team, gives you detailed job descriptions, and key performance indicators that will make your team a trusted part of top management. Get inspired and meet the needs of your company with this masterful guide to building your employee relations dream team. Download it at unionproof.com/build an employee relations dream team. We're back with Stephanie Miller, Director of Employee Relations for Lowe's. Stephanie, how would you describe Lowe's philosophy on ER?
I would say at Lowe's, we take a holistic approach to our philosophy, and it is the responsibility of all HR and people leaders to understand it, support it, and continuously improve upon it. The foundation of our approach is the creation and maintenance of a healthy workplace, kind of like what I mentioned a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And the ways in which we carry this out include making sure that we have very clear policies, procedures, and performance expectations, and that our leaders, both people leaders and HR, are able to clearly help our associates understand all of those things. Another aspect of our philosophy is also risk mitigation. And part and parcel to that is making sure that we are documenting the timely and thorough investigation and resolution of workplace concerns so that then we can extract reporting and analytics and provide kind of holistic and overview trends back to our people leaders and HR leaders so that we can collectively determine, where are our hot spots and what will we work together on in order to remedy those hot spots.
Wait, that's wonderful because I know in the past when I've worked for various organizations or big brands, you feel when you come to your employer with a complaint or whatever it is, it just feels like it gets like it falls by the wayside. That's wonderful that you keep track and you analyze and you bring it to the table so that you can eliminate whatever the issue is.
I think it's just not only, the way in which I think our associate would want to be treated,
Hmm.
but it's also, I think, a very key tenet to our pro-associate relations philosophy as well, because
Absolutely.
if they know where to go internally with their concerns, we've got a pretty good shot of addressing them, and then our associates aren't going to feel like they need to take them outside of our organization to be
Hmm.
handled.
Yeah, absolutely. It's another way that they feel valued too, because they're being heard by their employer.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely. The last thing that I think we focus on with respect to our ER philosophy is making sure that we are supporting and improving upon the relationships that are building between our people leaders and our associates. And so the things that we offer our people leaders in terms of maybe constant reminders, or maybe it's, information for the first time, are things like, how do you foster open communication with your people? How do you make sure that you're doing it timely? In other words, if we have a new company initiative that's rolling out, how do we make sure that we time it correctly in terms of bringing our associates in the fold on that journey so that they understand the why behind we're doing it? And then making sure that we're just constantly and in many, many different methods or modes of communication connecting with our associates. And we have a variety of ways in which we do that, but one of the ways, certainly in our stores, is having the ability to have kind of morning, afternoon, and evening huddles. And admittedly, in a time of a pandemic where social distancing is a
Mm,
must,
yeah,
we have been challenged with figuring out different ways in which to be sure that we're able to continue the frequency of that communication with our associates.
I bet. Do you have any examples of any ways that you've had to pivot in that specific area because of the pandemic?
Yes. Another method that we also have leveraged in the past are what we call town hall meetings. We can't do that anymore. And so what we've been trying instead is walking town halls where we have the store manager select 2 or 3 individuals from across the store and literally walk the external perimeter on the inside of the store and spend time talking about the top 2 to 3 issues or items that the store managers need to get to the employees, entertain their questions, ask them how they're doing, check in with them in general, both sort of mentally on how they're hanging in there with all that is going on while they're at work and in their personal life. And we have found that while, of course, it's not as efficient, it certainly has brought to life a new way in which we can ensure that our store leaders are connecting with our associates. And it even has added an additional personal touch because you've got this opportunity to talk with just a few people at a time.
Well, another question I wanted to ask you is, does Lowe's use employee surveys to keep lines of communication open?
Yes, Beth, we utilize an annual opinion survey, and we certainly also depend on other methods to keep the lines of communication open as well. But utilizing that annual survey, I think, allows for a couple of things that may not be uncovered necessarily during, let's say a town hall meeting. Because these surveys are anonymous, it certainly gives our associates an opportunity to express some concerns that they may feel uncomfortable raising, whether that is, in person with their own leader, or perhaps even kind of up through the chain of command vis-a-vis our open door
Hmm.
policy. The other thing that we really gain through our annual survey is, again, that notion of trends. And not only can we see how an individual location kind of matches up against the rest of the US enterprise, but we can dive in and easily parse out particular departments where there may be issues brewing that we wouldn't ordinarily be able to uncover. So we can go question by question and determine kind of where there may be some shortcomings. And then we can also go by almost individual by individual
Yeah.
survey taker. So it
Yeah.
can be really, really valuable for us.
It sounds like it. Well, earlier we talked about how philosophy might be tied to corporate culture. Would you say that your philosophy is consistent with Lowe's culture?
Yeah, I would definitely say that our philosophy is consistent with the culture that we are continuing to build. And as I mentioned earlier, that whole quote from Peter Drucker about culture eating strategy for breakfast. I would say definitely since our new CEO joined us, Marvin Ellison, we had that opportunity to kind of take a step back and really figure out what we are trying to be in this world, all the way down to what are we trying to be in our individual communities. So at Lowe's, we have 5 core leadership behaviors, and our behaviors include delivering results, focusing on customers, taking action, continuous learning, and showing courage. And delivering results, which of course is certainly one of our main strategies as a for-profit corporation, it has to be done in the context of the other 4 behaviors. And so likewise, our employee relations team implements our ER strategies for the enterprise within these same core leadership behaviors.
Okay, Stephanie. So at Lowe's, when do your employee relations efforts begin with any new employee? Or is it at onboarding or even before that?
Like many organizations, we have been evolving over time in terms of, really figuring out when are we attempting to dig in on kind of landing our core behaviors. And I think we've recognized that it really needs to begin with the selection process. And what I mean by that is we need to be sure that we are going to bring folks on board that may already be bought into our core behaviors without even really knowing what they are. So what we do, like many organizations, we use the behavioral based interviewing process. And when we ask questions, particularly of candidates for people leader roles, we listen for examples in the candidates' answers that reflect our core leadership behaviors. So that's one way I think we get at it, certainly in our selection process. Additionally, and again, depending on your role with our organization, we have several different types of new associate orientation programs. And these programs introduce our core leadership behaviors and begin to really help all of our new associates understand how the company expects them to handle conflict, develop their people, develop themselves. What kind of culture of accountability do we have? And how do we handle performance, etc. So I would say it starts even before our onboarding process.
What about ER efforts after onboarding? What does Lowe's do to keep that positive employee relations going?
I think that that's really where, at that point, the efforts that our team has underway in terms of our own labor relations programming, we have a multifaceted plan in place and multi-year, by the way, to continue to help our leaders, whether that's again in HR or our frontline people leaders, continue to promote a positive workplace for our associates. And in general, that program that we have has a huge training component, right? Not only is it training for our people leaders on sort of the basics of, what does a healthy workplace look like? But it also addresses, the soft skills that our people leaders need to have in order to be sure that they are, for instance, creating an open dialogue with their associates, being able to use situational leadership to kind of take the associate as they come to us, so to speak, and use a case by case response. Because while we like to figure out the one size fits all for conflict, it just isn't practical. And we have mechanisms in place to help our leaders understand how to think on their feet, how to figure out what are the issues that they need to escalate and get additional guidance on, what can they do in the moment to, contain a situation and respond to a situation. And fact of the matter is, it takes practice. So another aspect of what we spend time on is, coaching our HR leaders to be able to have really effective, coaching situations with the people leaders they support, whether that is, a version of role playing, whether that is a continuous review of situations that arise and seeking input and ideas from the leadership team, or whether it is just simply, making sure that our HR leaders are just spending time and checking in and making sure they understand what's going on within the four walls of a facility so that they too can help spot the issues and provide the coaching and guidance that is needed. So, and then, we've got several other aspects of our ongoing pro-associate relations programming that deal more with, dealing with acute responses to activity, as well as, how do we, organize our own counter campaign efforts and identify the right people to assist and be able to mobilize those things quickly should we need to.
Sounds very thorough and exhausting in the best way possible. And I would be proud for anyone that I know to work at Lowe's with how much interpersonal training they're getting, not only on the job, but just in it really sounds incredible what you guys do. So I just wanted to say that real quick.
Thanks, Beth.
Yeah. Well, earlier you talked about how employees are able to give their feedback to management through surveys. Let's talk about the other side of feedback. Does Lowe's efforts to foster positive employee relations impact how managers conduct performance management?
Yes, it sure does. And at Lowe's, we attempt to utilize kind of two tracks of handling performance management. So the first place that we always start is the use of an informal coaching model, so that managers can kick off performance management by providing the appropriate notice and training at the initial signs of unsatisfactory performance. So we always want to go about the response to somebody who may not quite be making the mark, in a very sort of nurturing, understanding, help the leaders understand maybe where there are gaps and provide all the support that we can to ensure that they have the right tools, resources to be able to do the job. And we allow a little bit of time to ensure that, whatever additional resources are given to the struggling associate, that they have some time to be able to put that into action. Now, I think where many leaders, and this is not specific to Lowe's, I think after those initial steps, I think leaders sometimes struggle when they determine when is it appropriate to take it to the next formalized steps, which for the most part, again, depending on the role of the individual in an organization, likely means a performance improvement plan. And so, the guidance that we give is, look, not only are we thinking about, what our business needs, but we also need to think about what our associate needs. And the longer we allow somebody's performance to not get any better, and we know it's not getting any better without doing something formal, that's not doing that associate any favors either.
Okay, so what role do employee recognition programs play in employee relations?
So, Beth, just like we need to ensure that we are maintaining a culture of accountability with respect to the promotion of a pro employee work environment, it is equally important that we recognize our associates for a job well done. And not and I kind of think about it this way. It's finding that right balance between making sure that we're giving that positive feedback to associates that will encourage them to know what the right behaviors are that contributes to the mission and the goals of our company, while at the same time providing them constructive feedback, maybe vis-a-vis our disciplinary process, so that they understand the guardrails and they see how others are also, held accountable when they may go astray. And I think recognition is sometimes a difficult thing, whether or not you're a large or a small organization, because it doesn't have to cost a lot of money in order to be sure that you are appropriately recognizing your associates. And maybe I can just give a brief example
Yeah, I was about
of.
to ask. I'd love some examples of that.
Yeah. So about 6 months ago, we decided that we needed to really show and very overtly show recognition for our cashiers. And we declared, I believe it was the month of November, as Cashier Appreciation Month across the US
Oh,
enterprise. It was really
yeah,
fantastic.
I
And
bet.
yeah, our store operations leaders provided kind of the framework for what this recognition program should consist of, but our local stores had a lot of freedom within that framework to develop what was going to work best for the store itself, as well as the individuals, right? And so, one of the things that many of our stores did was put up a big bulletin board in the front end of our stores and showcased several of the cashiers each week. And included on that bulletin board would be direct quotes from our customers that we had solicited through our likely to recommend surveys. Additionally, our company launched our Service Star Award system. And each district manager and above is given a certain number of these stars that they are able to distribute to individual associates across their district and regions. And it was just fantastic for our district managers to be able to issue those Service Star Awards to the cashiers during the appreciation month. And they would take pictures, post it on social media,
Oh, that's
post it
cool.
yeah, post it within the store. And then that appreciation would get bubbled up to, even Marvin Ellison, who himself hosts a very brief weekly podcast where he speaks directly to all of our associates. I think a lot of our cashiers felt really incredibly motivated
I
and really felt
bet.
valued. Yeah, and
Yeah.
really felt valued. So it was a fantastic success, and really looking forward to seeing what we're able to do this year with that same program.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love how you guys are it seems like you're always looking for ways to honor your employees so that they know that they are seen and recognized. That's really, really impressive. I like that. Well, Stephanie, it's time now for a very quick break. We'll be right back after this. You're listening to the Project HR podcast. I'm your host, Beth Pilgreen, and our guest today is Stephanie Miller, Director of Employee Relations for Lowe's. We are back. Stephanie, what do you think makes Lowe's approach to employee relations unique? And what are you doing that others aren't?
This is an interesting question, and I'm not sure we're doing anything unique in terms of other organizations may or may not be doing some of the things, but I would say that some of what we're doing is definitely new for Lowe's. And one of those things is, we are working really, really hard to think about situations that arise in the ER, LR arena on a case by case basis. While we've continuously adhered to, our general guiding principles, I would say, especially over the last months of us, living in a pandemic, and now with the uprising of the social injustice movements, we've worked really hard to analyze each and every one of these situations to ensure we have a clear understanding of similarities and differences across these situations so that we can customize what our resolutions are going to be. And I think that this approach has made our leaders, including leaders on our own team, better listeners and far more creative problem solvers. I think gone are the days of maybe relying heavily on, well, this is how we've always done it. Has really, I think, diminished a lot over the last 4 to 5 months because we've encountered so many unique circumstances.
Yeah, so much
And we've
change.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so much change. And we've just had to, I think, see a variety of issues from different perspectives simultaneously so that we can bring our very best to solving those business problems.
Yeah. Last year in 2019, Lowe's initiated a restructuring that put your ER strategy to the test. Can you tell us about how you handled this challenge?
Oh, yes, it sure did put us to the test. And I mean, I'm happy to say that we just celebrated our 1 year anniversary on July 1st. And while it was an enormous amount of work in a fairly short amount of time in terms of sort of getting ourselves ready as well as our customer base ready, I think that we, in particular in employee and labor relations, have been very successful in centralizing our service delivery model. Just to give you a sense of where we started and where we are today, when I joined Lowe's 2.5 years ago, we were a mighty team of 15 people.
Whoa.
Aspects of our service delivery were decentralized, and the decentralized portion were kind of concerns that didn't rise to the level of Title VII, and those concerns were handled locally by local HR. And as a result of our transformation, we brought all the investigation, resolution of not only all workplace issues in-house into our centralized function here in Mooresville, but we also centralized all corrective action as well, which had never been done before. So modernizing those aspects of employee relations were really critical in terms of ensuring that we are being fair and consistent and mitigating our risk. And so we went from that the mighty team of 15 to today, we have almost 120 individuals.
Wow.
Yeah, yes. And, of course, there were hiccups, and of course, there were many opportunities for re-education over the last year. But I would say, by and large, we have definitely successfully launched our new service delivery model. And I'm happy to say we've been able to continuously improve that. And we even made some internal functional changes earlier this spring to better meet the needs of our customers. So all in all, I think it's been fantastic. We've gotten some really, really great feedback from our customer base, both, positive and constructive. And I think we've shown them that we're listening by making, appropriate changes to continue to adapt to our business. And what we're doing today, I assure you, will not be what we're doing a year from now. And that's okay. And then I look forward to seeing the next iteration.
Well, let me just say happy anniversary then from July 1st. You guys have accomplished a lot in this last year. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Well, Stephanie, how would you rate the success of Lowe's employee relations strategy as a whole?
Beth, I would say we have come a long way in the short 2.5 years that I've been with Lowe's. Not only have we raised the quality of our practice, but we've also been able to scale it to support our entire U.S. enterprise. And for the first time in our company's history, we are able to provide reporting and analytics regarding our employee and labor relations issues, which obviously allows us to continue to be reactive, but it certainly bolsters our position of being able to be more reactive. Of course, we have much room for improvement, but that's part and parcel of a modern HR function. And we have to continue to be able to be agile and adaptable to the needs of our various business lines. And I think the wonderful thing about Lowe's is we have our most senior and executive leaders support for our function. And I know that they will continue to rely on us to meet the needs and the ever-changing demands, not only internally, but certainly from our customers that pay at our registers.
Well, Stephanie, this has been such an information-packed episode, and I am so pleased that you were able to join us today. Listeners, just as a reminder, you can pick up this episode's companion guide at projectionsinc.com/podcast. In it, you'll find notes, links, and more. But right now, Stephanie, it's time for our lightning round questions. And these are questions we ask every guest of the podcast. Are you ready?
I'm ready, Beth.
All right, topic showdown. In this episode, we've been talking about positive employee relations. In your opinion, which is more important, to accentuate the positive or eliminate the negative?
Hands down, Beth, to accentuate the positive.
I thought you might say that. What's the best book you've read recently?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I have been all over the place with my reading these last few months, which is somewhat maybe a sign of having a little too much free time on my hands.
I can relate.
But I'd say on the lighter note of things I've been reading, a collection of essays by Samantha Irby called Wow, No Thank You.
Oh.
It is seriously hilarious.
Okay, I just wrote that down. Thank you for that. What is your favorite thing about working in employee relations?
Oh, I love this question. I think for me, it's the fact that I have the very rare opportunity every single day to make an impact on our company's culture and to make a difference for one employee and one people leader at a time.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I've been lucky enough to have been given a lot of advice over the years. And I'd say one of the many important pieces I've been given has always been to trust my instincts because they are rarely incorrect.
Who or what inspires you?
Oh, lovely, lovely question. I'm going to go with a what. You know that saying, your mistakes don't define you, it's what you do after the mistake that makes all the difference? Having observed people during my life that have made mistakes, both minor as well as personally and professionally devastating mistakes. And in so many instances, these individuals have been able to set aside their egos, shame, maybe guilt, feelings of inferiority, etc., and instead have put all of that energy into recovering from that mistake. And I've seen it oftentimes be life-changing for individuals, and in turn, that has given me hope for humanity and inspires me to do the same.
Yeah, I bet. Well, Stephanie, thanks for joining me today on this week's episode of Project HR.
Thank you, Beth, so much. I've really enjoyed our time together today.
Me too. Well, thanks also to our listeners. And as always, this is your reminder to grab the companion for this episode at projectionsinc.com/podcast. If you'd like to be on Project HR or know someone who would, feel free to email us at projecthr@projectionsinc.com. And finally, to make sure you never miss an episode of Project HR, we hope you'll subscribe to the podcast. And if you're feeling it, drop us a line, leave us a review, or simply rate us 5 stars wherever you get your content. That's it from me for now. Let's make it a great day at work.